Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Pisces, brought to you by the Goat of Open, D3 damage slash Mow Mow. Uh, I love long CMs. I like to call them recycling CMs, and we're going to talk about why later. First and foremost, you all need to understand that I've had Super Creek for a very long time. Now, I didn't have her MLB until Right Shower and Rico came out. I got really lucky on my pulls and actually pulled both a MLB Right Shower and an MLB Super Creep, which was goaded. And that being the case, I think a natural thing to wonder is, hey D3, if that's true, why aren't you just doing graded? Well, my speed cards still suck, unfortunately, and I have other problems. Namely, you remember how I talked about in Track Blazer how like the score that you need to go into for Class 6 is going to go up, and it's going to take a lot of effort to get things from where they are now up to an acceptable level for Trackblazer where you're consistently staying in Class 6. Oh yeah, it's already happening, okay? What I need y'all to understand is that I am dropping out of Class 6 for the first time in literal months, right? And I want to fix that. I very much value the team trials. One, because I think it's kind of fun to watch the team trial races. They're actually pretty. And if you've never done so, watching team trial races is actually pretty fun. A lot of them have very, very interesting builds that are pretty cool to watch. But two, I like the carrots that they give you, and I like getting daily carrots every now and then. An extra 5 or 10 goes a long way, you know. Especially because like I know what's going to happen for graded. In graded, I'm going to have to send dozens or hundreds of runs for the win rate that I really want, right? You especially for like the low power level of my deck, there's no way I get to just send one run and call it a day like I can with open. Again, fair reminder, I don't own MLB TSM Black. I don't own MLB Fine Motion. In fact, if there's an MLB Speed card that wasn't given to us for free, I don't have it. Right? That's just not the way the things worked out. And you might go, well, what about your selector ticket? We'll talk about that later. But for now, let's just say I'm not very happy with with how things have gone in my my pools. And I know it might be scary for some of you who are like looking at open for the first time, but I'm going to help assuage some of your fears. All right, because first and foremost, you need to there's something you understand. I'm not unbeatable. Okay, I am not this unstoppable god at Uma. I lose too. And bear in mind who I am. I am the literal undefeated champion of Open Global, right? Whatever I've done in Open CM, I've never lost. This is my first time ever losing in Open CM, okay? And frankly, if I can lose, anyone can lose. All right. And that means anyone can win. The odds of you being able to pass me up in the race are much higher than whatever's about to happen in graded. Because frankly, graded is about to be a slaughter. All right. It's going to remind everyone a lot of the very first CM, the Taurus Cup. Why? Well, because the ceiling has exploded. The lid has popped off. UG UMA are now possible, and frankly, you should expect them. Because this CM, you can absolutely hit max stats on everything except for one stat, right? It's going to happen, right? I've seen what people are putting out and what they are racing on in the global graded lobbies, and frankly, there a lot of those UMA are terrifying. I don't think you should have a reasonable expectation of beating any of these UMA, unless you are also a min-maxing, free-to-play, 95% support-only puller, or a whale, right? It does take a lot of effort to get to those ranks. And someone who is one of those people will probably tell me, "You're talking nonsense. Just stop snacking." I'm like, "Okay, cool, but like, uh, this is still a gotcha, right? Like the perfect cards doing okay. The best possible best in slot cards still exist, and this is still a gotcha where you might just low roll, and you just don't have enough support selector tickets to get everything you could possibly want, right? You probably have gotten what two, three, maybe four crystals if you're really lucky with like your team trial luck, right? Or with your random race luck. That's enough to MLB one card if you get a singleton copy, right? That's enough to MLB two cards if you got three copies of each, right? And frankly, with the way the gotcha luck runs in this game, and with no pity carryover, it does happen where you just don't have the best possible copy of a card, and now you're competing with these people down here making Ujis and graded. Good luck. Versus open, there is a cap, a very harsh cap of 8,200. It is what it is. You just can't do better than that. Uh, Now, here's what you can do. You should be aware that a lot of the advice from graded does still apply down and open. So if you have watched like Victoria Frontier, 713, Moo Moo Cows, Red New, Jackie X, any of those people, yeah, you've been given mostly good advice. A lot of it still applies, right? It's still right-handed, still Hanshin, still standard distance, etc., etc., right? Uh, every distance, every reason why ults proc or don't proc is still the same. Uh, but we do talk about what's different. That's what I'm going to try and focus on in this particular guide. What is different between graded and open? In particular, I want to talk about why I love long CMs, what mamas are more important down here in open than they are in graded, why we value greens again. We're going to cover that again, like we just did in the last video. We're going to talk about accelerations. Now, last time we talked about just dirt skills in general. This time, viable accelerations is going to be way more important for that, as is going to be base stat line and points values. We're gonna have a really long talk about the tug of war that's involved for long CMs. Now, again, I need to make sure you understand. I'm not joking. I'm being very, 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 very serious. I really do truly love long CMs. They are my playground. They are the ones that have given me my undefeated title, unironically. I don't lose these, right? All of my best win rates, like my unironic, like top five in the world win rates, right, come from long CMs. They are my bread and butter. And I'm going to tell you some of my secrets for how I know that neither of these Uma can finish the race and that I know I'm going to win, which is part of why I love long CMs. One of the things you need to understand is that we actually know a lot about how stamina works, and so because we know how much about stamina works, me sharing this secret is kind of troll because this is something that everyone should know. Like in theory, if you've done any research at all, or even just paid attention to your own like long finale runs or Unity Cup long finale runs. You should have noticed this stuff already. Okay, uh, I'm I'm a little suffering from success here because part of me is in literal pain, just in confusion about people not knowing some of this stuff. So that's part of what motivated me to finally make this video. I did delay this video for a while for a couple of reasons I'll go into later, but for now, suffice to say, I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom here, people, because we know, again, how stamina works. We know where you get your stamina and what your HP is. We know how much HP costs per second. We know what your speeds are at all times, and we know how long the races go. Again, I need to make sure I shout out 713M3 in particular. Now, you can just go to a reference document and find this information for yourself, but I really appreciate what 71M3 has done, breaking down mechanics in a mathematical way. I need to make sure that at least one person goes and clicks the subscribe button for 71M3 off of this video, okay? Someone needs to go follow this man. It is a crime that they have only 5,000 subscribers, right? That's not right, because they give so much information, and I can absolutely attribute some of my wins to this person. All right. If the minute that I figure out how to provide links in a way that doesn't invade my privacy, I'm going to provide a link to this person's server. They absolutely deserve it. All right. So let's start with some calculations that to help everyone else understand what 71N3 has taught me with their videos. First and foremost, base speed. All right. Base speed is calculated off of a very simple formula. And I know math is scary for all of y'all, but you'll have no excuse. I'm doing the math for you right now, okay? The simple formula is 20 minus the course distance minus 2,000 divided by 1,000. What is that in the result? That basically means that, like, the shorter the track is, the faster the Uma move. Shocker, I know. Uh, when you're running a longer race, you slow down a little bit. Wow, it's crazy, right? But still, what's important to note for this particular CM is that on this CM, everyone's base speed is 18.8. And you might go, okay, well, why does that matter? Well, because base speed is a very major factor in HP consumption. So we can figure out, roughly speaking, how much HP you spend per second. So if you're moving base speed, and by the way, this is kind of true on most tracks, by the way, you can kind of use this generic math most of the time. Uh, it turns out if you're at base speed, you're only going to spend about 20 HP per second most of the time. Now, it is worth noting you're not always base speed, and this is not a normal track, right? We are in heavy rain, and so that means that everyone here needs to understand that the stamina requirements are a little bit higher than normal, right? This is not quite a normal CM where you can just rely on your raw numbers. You will probably need at least a gold recovery of some kind, right? Uh, for example, this number here, this 3,860, is not accounting for heavy ground. But this is a good floor, right? This is a really good floor for me being able to look at someone's UMA at a glance and understand, okay, do they have enough HP to finish the CM? Because this 3,860 number is the minimum that you should expect on a late surger in order to actually finish the race, right? In order to have a chance. The reason they have a chance with this much HP at 3,860 is because the track timer, how long the race is, varies a little bit, right? There's things like wit checks, there's things like guts, stamina reduction burn, right? Where guts reduces how much stamina you spend per second. And so when you account for some of those things that save you stamina, if you can at a glance know that someone's like HP is above this amount, then you know they have at least a chance to finish the race. So you can know you can pay attention to them and see what they're up to, right? Well, what does that mean for us? That means for us, at a glance, we routinely know because of what we know about stamina and HP, because stamina and HP are not directly, they're correlated, but not directly one to one, right? Like your ability to finish the race is not just your stamina, it is your HP count. Uh, and so we need to look at that 3,860 number that we found, right? And we need to say, okay, well, how much HP does a Uma actually have? Can they beat that minimum 3,860 amount for this particular race? Let's find out. So we have this Diamond Star here that I was talking about earlier. My one of my free food Uma, right? One of my two free food Uma. This one has a base stamina of 412 with a additional 60 because of standard distance. Now they were a pace chaser, so we get to apply the pace chaser modifier to their HP. Now what is HP? HP is the actual like number that is tracked when your Uma is running. And when you run out of HP, then you'll enter into a mode where you only move at a minimum speed possible, multiplied slightly by your guts, or increased slightly by your guts, right? Ideally, you never hit minimum speed. Ideally, you're at your top speed at all times or as soon as possible, right? So the more HP you have, the better chances you have for being at your top speed at the correct timing, right? So this is part of why I know that if she can't finish, she won't be at her, or rather, she if she doesn't have enough HP, she can't be at her top speed. She'll be at her minimum speed, and especially with a guts score of 210, I know that she's about to explode. So let's explain. With that HP and all that math, we get to a nice number of 3,550. That's not great, right? We put it into our calculator. I did the math for you. At that number, she would need a couple of gold recoveries plus some really good luck in order to finish. Oh, you know what? She does have a gold recovery. Well, let's check that out. How do we know how much stamina a gold recovery gives you? Well, it's not based off of your stamina number. It's based off of your HP number. So if you've ever looked on Game Tour and go stamina recovery 0.0055, but how does that help, right? Like if you look at that, like they don't match. Well, it's because this stamina recovery isn't based off of your stamina stats; it's based off of your HP, right? So her stamina recovery for this Daiwa is based off of that 3,550 number that we acquired earlier, right? So we multiply 3,550 by her stamina recovery, we get 194. We add that to our total, assuming that this procs correctly. She's still below the threshold, right? Again, at a glance, I know that if I see this Uma in a CM, I know she's free food, despite the gold recovery. But I do want to mention something. You will probably notice, if you're looking at this math very carefully, wait a minute, point 0.8, 0.89, 412, 60, 3,200. Where the heck does that 3,200 come from? That comes from course distance. What you need to understand is that the gap between a low stamina build like this and a higher stamina build isn't really that big. It's only going to be like this based on these multipliers plus the stamina, right? Most of your base stamina actually just comes from the course distance itself, right? That has implications for later that we're going to talk about. But for now, what you need to remember is that like course distance matters for giving you more HP. Your stamina is basically just a small bonus on top of the course HP that you get. Now let's talk about an Uma that has thought about this at least a little bit. This Uma is a lot better built. Why? Well, it might be slower because you'll notice that Daiwa is almost max speed, right? It's only 70 short, right? Almost graded levels of speed. Because I expected to move at minimum speed, I expect to beat it. But this Uma has run my fade. I've been in testing lobbies and I've lost to this Uma more than once. Jay Free, whoever you are, you did a fantastic job slapping this girl together. Nice job. So what's so special about her? Well, she has enough recovery, so she has two gold recoveries. Even at her base stamina amount, she's already over our 3,860. Again, let's do some quick math. Zero point 0.8 times 0.995, that is the end closer modifier, times 884. No other stamina bonuses in here apart from her gold, so we just calculate her raw. That 3,903 is already over our minimum 3,860. And on top of that, right, we have this number here where we include both of her goals. If we include both of her goals, and notice her stamina recovery recovers more than the Daiwa, right? The Daiwa here recovers less than this Narita Taishin does, just because the Narita Taishin has a bigger stamina number. So keep that in mind too, right? Like, your stamina has a small role in how much stamina recovery you actually get, right? It's not just a raw number, it's also amplifying the effect of whatever goals that you have. That's part of why it's important to have a relatively high stamina for long CMs, right? They have multiplicative effects that are really, really important for getting you. Oh my god, that's a 4 grand. At this level of stamina, I basically never expect this Uma to gas out, like, ever. Like, even if she gets debuffed, even if she gets hit with a freaking, like, nuke and someone breaks her kneecaps, I fully expect her to finish a lot of the time. And on top of that, she has a pair of acceleration skills with between Nimble Nav and Encroaching Shadow. This is a terrifying Uma. I look at this and I know that if this has Long S and Turf S, I'm basically screwed, right? So now you know that too. So now you knowing what a good Uma looks like versus what a not so good Uma looks like, you have a much better idea at a glance of, oh, they're under 700 stamina and they don't have a gold recovery. They can't win. Right? Versus, oh shit, they have over 800 stamina and they have Swing Maestro. They have a real shot. Oh, and a second gold. Oh my god, this one was scary. You will know from now on what to pay attention to in long CMs. This is part of why we call this a recycling CM, or call all long CMs recycling CMs. Because builds like this are repeatable, right? You can use this build over and over again, even if it's not a Spring Runner. This will still win even without Spring Runner sometimes, right? And that is at least in part because, well, inherent accelerations are pretty flawed this CM. Normally, when we're talking to you about best in slot mamas, we're talking about acceleration mamas. Those are normally the best. However, this particular CM, there's a very large distance between the best accelerations you can get as any character and where the start of the late race is. For in this case, there's about 6 seconds between where you start to hit the late race and versus where you actually hit an acceleration for the CM. If you use Indian Steaming or Let's Pump Some Iron, that's quite late. Uh, and there are other ones that we would talk about a little bit that probably even later that are even worse. Are they usable? Yes, I won't tell you they're not usable. They will have some effect, but it's very likely that you're going to be very close to already hitting your maximum speed by the time you hit this, especially if you have any other accelerants, which other people will. Other accelerations are absolutely your bread and butter this CM. Now, you might notice I didn't talk about Kiyosan Black yet. Well, Kiyosan Black is basically custom built for the CM, and I haven't seen one win yet. But I think it's because they were built poorly. We'll talk more about that later. But here's something to keep in mind for those of you, since we're talking about mamas right now. Uh, as a mama, she only gives you a 10% acceleration, and only if you're in first or second place. That's probably not enough to build distance on any straightaway sprint end closers, or nimble nav end closers, or slick surge late surgers, or head on pace chasers that just get a lucky proc and just fly in front of you. And then they might even turn off alien steaming if you take both, right? Uh, there's a very real danger if you run a front runner and it's not Kiyosan Black herself, if you're inheriting Kiyosan Black's ult, that the ults just won't do enough to accelerate you. And we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about that more later, right? And again, I need to make sure I emphasize there are a lot of normally very good inheritances that you can't use. Now, there's a bunch of other hybrid acceleration Umas, like Dyra Starlet, they're not great to inherit, or and Alcondra Pasta, that's also not great to inherit. And Shooting for Victory and Redshift over here, they just proc too late, right? Like, you're definitely done accelerating by the time you hit the final corner. The final corner is like past the halfway point of the late race. You're short of luck if you try and use those as your final accelerants. It don't work. Now, as always, velocity inheritance are okay, right? There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with being frugal, right? And they are cheaper than a lot of very similar white skills if you take those. And they're routinely relatively efficient compared to like a gold velocity skill. Take them if you want to. I won't stop you, but they probably won't make or break your run. There are exceptions, and we'll talk about those later. But for now, keep in mind that there's no real best in slot mama for velocity inheritance this CM, because stats are going to be king in open this CM. That being said, there are best in slot stamina recovery ults. The big ones are definitely going to be Pure Heart and Superior Heal because they give 35% recovery. If you'll remember, Sweeney Maestro gives you a 55%, or rather 5.5%, and Pure Heart and Superior Heal give you 3.5%. So this means they give you most of the value of a gold recovery while only being about 2/3 of the price, right? Like they're quite good this CM, yeah. And so what I want you to think about is that because these two are such good things for you to inherit, I could probably recommend them basically all the time, right? If you see a good like pure heart like borrow or a good superior heal baller that has like other things that you want, grab it. You'll probably want that moment like something crazy. You'll notice I also have Agnes Tachyon and Mambo over here. They kind of share a slot of like a stamina recovery ult that's about as good as a white ult when inherited, that also gives some velocity. I have seen those two Uma spike something fierce sometimes when they ult at a particularly good time. However, it's worth noting that as an inherited, you probably shouldn't be taking a random velocity that's only worth 5%. But since they are also white recovery stills, they do have value, right? They are cheaper than any white recovery still you could otherwise buy. So if you have Uma squared on dock, it's fine, right? Same for whatever Mambo's ult is called. Now, again, we're going to talk about greens briefly. I need to remind you, greens are about efficiency. Efficiency is important in open CMs. You just don't have a lot of points. It's very difficult to squeeze in very significant stat lines. So if you want to be efficient and you want to have a good run, you must have at least one green to give you that little bit of extra stats that you might not otherwise deserve. And yes, it's valuable even starting at 500. Once you hit 500 in a stat, it starts becoming worth it to start thinking about those greens, right? Now then, speaking of greens, let's talk about where you can get them and what I think the best in slots are. Last CM for the dirt one, you didn't really want any like green like stamina stills. But you're in a long CM now, motherfucker. And in long CMs, the standard is the standard. Standard distance will absolutely carry some of your races. Just the virtue of having more HP than the guy next to you for cheap means that you can buy other stuff instead, right? This means that I really highly value any like green skills that give you raw stamina. Standard distance, Hanshin, they're both very high priority. Because they're so high priority, someone will mistake your deck for a man's deck, okay? Because you will absolutely take power Nation of Flower, so she happens to give both. Although speed Nation of Flower will also work. Speaking of powerful cards that will confuse people, there are some good cards that are working just fine in mods, like Fine Motion, Free to Play Narita Blind, Free to Play Major Bright, that like they give you right-handed and other stuff too. That means these three, Fine Motion in particular, are quite good this CM, right? Just for getting you right-handed and also doing other helpful stuff. Speaking of other helpful stuff, here's Nisha Flower again for the second time. I need to repeat myself because some people didn't hear me in the back. This is a really high importance card this CM. You probably have this card. You don't even need to have her MLB. Just by having her around and getting potential access to the 1 in 6 chance to roll either of her greens that she can give you for stamina is incredible on this particular long CM. You must find Nishino Flower and throw her in. I don't care how you do it, whether it's off of the wit card, the speed card, or the power card, figure it out. Now, the one that's going to be kind of tough is Spring Runner. There are not very many cards that give you Spring Runner. Uh, in my desperation, I actually did use R Stamina McQueen on one of my Uma for this particular CM because I was so desperate to get another green. And I do think Spring Runner is absolutely worth it. Now, will it be worth it all the time? I don't know, but it was definitely worth it this particular time. So, is what it is. Uh, you'll notice that there are actually a lot of Uma that have Spring Runner. Those Uma are high value this CM. McQueen, Tokai Teo, the new Sakura, Kiyosan Black, right? Like, they are very high value this CM, so keep that in mind. So even though they can't necessarily, like, give it to somebody else, you could, in theory, like, make a Spring Runner Mama whose only job is to give you Spring Runner. It's possible. That's a little bit more effort than I personally want to put into my CM, but hey, if you want this green really badly, and you kind of do, maybe. Wet conditions. Now, you'll notice that Biwa Haihide has shown up before. She has also been present for a couple of our other greens, but she is unfortunately not quite free to play. And there are a lot of cards that I know you have because they are free to play. Very notably, Major McQueen's Stamina is a card that all of you have, and she will have Wet Conditions and Rainy Days. Now, Rainy Days is not very high value, but Wet Conditions is. You do always value that little bit of extra power. You'll be surprised how often you will win races because you just have more power than the guy next to you because they underestimate how much power they need. But it's not as high priority as a stamina or speed card. Stamina and speed is still king, right? You just need power too on top of that, right? Don't undersell power. One that also I kind of caught me by surprise and I didn't put it onto the slide is Major Orion Power. This is a card that I basically never talk about, right? This one right here, Major Orion Power, the one with the basketball play, right? Uh, I don't normally take it. I'm not normally interested. But I did realize this CM that it happens to be on more than one thing as well. I kind of missed it when I was talking about this particular CM, but hey, if you happen to want to have some extra greens, I definitely can recommend, oddly enough, Major Orion Power as well. Especially because Major Orion Power only has 4 skills on her, so she's actually very likely to give you the greens that you want. Although, Biwa Hayahide definitely has better stat growth, so each your own. If you somehow don't have Major Queen stamina, Manhattan Cafe stamina can also help a lot. She has Stamina Eater on her as well, meaning for end closes and late surges, she's especially valuable. So strongly consider Manhattan Cafe at least a little bit. All right. Now, rainy days. I will mention this the same way I talked about sunny days for the last CM. It's not that great to get extra guts because it's not really that efficient unless you are doing a guts build. There are guts builds, there are reels to the CM. I have seen a couple of them perform very well against my own Uma in the testing lobbies. And so, since guts builds are kind of real, you could realistically take rainy days on one of those builds if you want to. I did because I had a very specific strategy that I'm trying to pull off. But that doesn't mean that you have to. You can very safely skip rainy days and not feel bad unless you're doing a guts build. Now, let's talk about the accels. Accelerations are a problem with CM. You might recall I talked about how there's no good inherited accelerations to CM. Because of that, we need to figure out what good off of a card accelerations you can get. Again, cards are much more reliable than Mamas. You can find other accels that are very good. Ignited Spirit Guts come to mind. Ignited Spirit Power also comes to mind. But those rely on Mamas, and Mamas are just not very reliable. And part of why you do open is to have some kind of consistency in your runs to make sure that even like an awkward run is still a very good run. And there's a lot of very good cards that give you Nimble Navigator. I highlighted Fine Motion here because she happens to give you right-handed, but it's worth noting that Zeno Robroy Speed and Mayano Top Gun Speed are also both very valuable to CM because they give you other acceleration skills for different types of Uma. So I really, really recommend those cards as well, even though I didn't like highlight them on this particular run. Now, Stairway Spurt. It's probably not a secret to you. If you've done any investigation into any graded people at all, again, Moo Moo Cows, 7-1-3, Victoria Frontier, Red New, anybody, right? You'll probably know that Straightaway Spurt is going to make End Closers the king of the CM. And Open is no exception. This is absolutely one of the places where Open has a huge overlap with the graded community, right? You will lose to some Uma that has Straightaway Spurt. It's going to happen. Whether that's a gold chip or it's a Mobile Cross or a Titan, somebody's gonna have it, and they're gonna fold you. Because of how important Straightaway Spurt is for your end closers, I can, without joke, unironically recommend Air Shakur. Air Shakur is actually an incredible way to get Straightaway Spurt because Straightaway Spurt is part of her chain event. Because Straightaway Spurt is part of her chain event, it makes it extremely reliable to get Straightaway Spurt. It's very, very, very consistent. And on top of that, she also gives you intense days, and so even though in graded, she is a terrible card because she is terrible at giving you stats. Welcome to Open. You don't care. This is a great card down here in Open. Now, there are other good cards with this. Amazon Power is probably your classic way that you're getting Straightaway Spurt. Very notably, Golshi is actually a pretty good card for this because Golshi happens to give Hanshin Racehorse as well. So if you are running an end closer who's not Golshi, you can very strongly consider running green speed Golshi for some greens and straightaway spurt chances. It's not likely; she offers a ton of skills, but hey, you never know, right? Now, for your pace chasers, you're going to be getting head on, right? It is non-negotiable. Oh, speaking of non-negotiable, my personal recommendation is that you grab Nimble Navigator and another acceleration, right? You probably want two excels this CM because if you only proc one and there's a Kiyosan block in front of you that's really good, they're probably just gonna fold you, okay? And you'll have no chance to catch up to them because they'll have a 30% excel and you'll only be rocking a 20. If you rock that at all. If Nimble Nav doesn't proc, then you are in big trouble. So you want to have a backup. Uh, End closers are the reverse. For end closers, straightaway spurts is the primary, and Nimble Navigator is the backup. But still, you should absolutely prioritize a second XL for your pace chasers too. Now, for your pace chasers, it's mostly going to come from this Mayon Top 10 Speed card, or from the brand new free to play Special Week Power. Yes, Special Week Power does give head on an event. It is also worth mentioning that many UMA have head-on built into their kit somewhere, and you are playing URI Finale if you're doing open, so you can do the special event that gets it. Very notably, I think Daiwa Scarlet and Mayano Top Gun are very, very powerful pace chasers this CM. I haven't seen anyone else run a Daiwa Scarlet. It's only me. I'm the only one I've seen do it so far, but she is quite strong this CM sometimes, and she will absolutely fold people and win races when they aren't expecting it. So keep that in mind. Now, Slick Surge. Slick Surge is everywhere. You are going to find a shit ton of Slick Surge skills uh, running around. Not just on Uma, but also on support cards. I will happen to recommend Nakayama Festa, really because she in particular also gives you wet conditions, which is a very good green skill to CM. So giving both Slick Surge and wet conditions makes a card a little bit better than the others on average, but notably, if you are running a bunch, if you're specifically making a late surger, both really any vodka card and any winning ticket card are also good. So pick and choose your battle there. Now, I must emphasize that I get this question every CM. No, Dominator does not work on this route. Summer Gold Chip is not out yet. You cannot scam in random golds where they don't belong. Because you can't scam in random golds where they don't belong, if it says anything other than long, if it says medium, if it says sprint, if it says mile, it does not work this CM. Please do not take those skills again. I won't make fun of you, but I will be sad. Actually, no, I won't. I'll actually be incredibly ecstatic whenever I see you in the CM because you're probably a free win. All right, and I'm trying to help you out right now, so please listen to my advice. Do not take the Dominator. Be very careful about what skills you take for the CM. Speaking of being careful, there are some interesting skills that they won't work because they can't, right? Unrestrained looks good on paper for your front runners, but unfortunately it only procs on final corner. And corner connoisseur also looks interesting in general if you happen to proc it at the very opening of the first corner, but there's a very high odds it just won't proc at all. And as always with gold excels, if they don't have a good chance of procking, you don't take them. They're too expensive for you to be gambling on them. There's a theme, right? White excels are basically the only ones that you got this CM. Good luck. Now then, hey, Sweetie Maestro, my beloved, all of you should have this. I don't care how you get it. Borrow her. Find her. Find a Rice Shower Power to borrow. Find a Super Creek to borrow. Everyone was recommended both of these cards. You probably have an Uma that has them running around because everyone was recommended TM Upper O. Everyone has Super Creek. Figure it out. However you get Sweetie Maestro onto your Uma, get it there. It's so good this CM. I have seen so many people in the open lobbies fail to grab this and then have an inconsistent gold recovery that just does not help them as much as this card does. Figure it out. You will win races because you have Swinging Maestro and no one else in the lobby does. It definitely happens. Now, if you can't get Swinging Maestro for one reason or another, or hey, maybe you just want to have a backup recovery, because that's viable. A backup recovery is absolutely viable this CM. You probably don't need it to finish, but you would need it if someone is trying to debuff you, and that is important sometimes. In that instance, Bofa is okay. It's not the best. It can sometimes proc at a bad time, either too early or too late to be helpful, but it has enough opportunities to be good that I think it's okay, right? Uh, Not the best, but okay. And the same is true with cooldown, right? Cooldown is also okay. And if you happen to be doing a guts build, Major McQueen in particular also gives you rainy days. Oh, right. Bofa. You can get Bofa off of vodka. Vodka is the best way to get Bofa. But if you don't have vodka, you can absolutely just run with Toast and Jordan. She's free. You have her. Use it, right? No reason not to. Special Week. I have a love-hate relationship with this card. The stats of this card are pretty terrible most of the time. But now she has a race bonus, so if you're in Track Blazers, she's actually not terrible, right? You can very really consider running her for the CM if you're a pace chaser. Because she gives you Gourmand sometimes on a random chance. But she also gives you a bunch of greens. As a late surger or pace chaser, she actually gives you late surger savvy or wet conditions and rainy days. So if you happen to be one for a ton of greens for some reason, I don't know, maybe you're in open, you want to win, you want a bunch of greens because you want to have more stats than everyone else, you just want to be more efficient than everyone else is. Hey, look what card it was free to play. So if you happen to have been around when Special Week was coming out, congratulations, you actually have a very good card this CM. Now, there are some other good stamina recoveries, right? Race planners, of course, quite good. Sleep in line, restless, lie in wait, right? Uh, you might wonder why I put race planner on its own part and not Normand. Well, because Normand comes on special week, who's a particularly good card this CM. Daiwa Scarlet is not as good a card. She's not a a stamina or speed card. Stamina and speed are the queens of the CM. So not having stamina speed does nerf the card a little bit, which is why Race Planner didn't get a special day to itself. But the rest of these are just good. Now, you probably don't have any of these cards, but if you do, good for you, or hey, it's a good borrow, right? Now, there are some that I would love to pass on, or I would love to get a hold of, like Go Home Specialist or VIP Pass, but unfortunately, they are locked into specific UMA. It is what it is. I know, Kids I'm Black, I'm crying too. Now, I need to emphasize, I know the temptation exists. Trackblazer is now out, and Unity Cup is now out. So you might reasonably say, well, why don't I run one of those? Why should I still run UI Finale, Mr. D3 Damage? Well, the rules are still the same. You can't see. Uh, sort of. I haven't tried Trackblazer yet for Open. I suspect it's possible. Possible and easy are not the same thing, because I have noticed that the raw stats of the people in the finale for Trackblazer are a lot tougher than the ones that are in URA Finale. Because they're so much stronger, I can't in good conscience recommend that you do that, because you're very likely to just lose a lot of skill points, which could otherwise be used into your UMA. And you'll also lose a little bit of predictability, because if you happen to win on accident, that's rough, right? So I definitely still recommend URA Finale. Especially when Unity Cup still blocks your reds, right? Unity Cup will block your exclamation points. It will hide them from you. It makes your job harder. Because it makes your job harder, we're playing open because we want things to be easy. Why are you allowing things to get difficult? Now, again, I need to make sure I'm clear. I'm not going to do any tier lists, but I do want to talk a little bit about like what stats are possible this CM. All right, any UMA can hit this basic stat line, right? I'm not going to leave you out in the dark here. All right. Uh, this is a pretty easy stat line to hit. This assumes that you have Swinging Maestro or some other like cheap gold recovery, which is the other reason why Swinging Maestro is so good. By the way, it's cheaper than a lot of the other skills. Why I don't know. It's one of the best ones, even without being cheaper. It's crazy. Anyways, this is a good stat line. It wins races. I've lost to this stat line. I've beaten people with this stat line. I think it's completely fair to say this is a very, very, very good stat line, right? Now then, as always, I need to make sure I give a very good caveat. I have no idea what the best results are. Uh, there is no good way of knowing whether it is better to have fewer skills and more stats, or less stats and more skills. There's no good way of knowing, right? However, I personally hold to the paradigm that if it's not a green skill, you shouldn't have it, unless it's a recovery skill or an acceleration skill. I do think that those three are the primacy of the CM. It is possible to use velocity inheritance to good effect of the CM, but we'll see. We'll see, right? Uh, all the above have had win rates in previous long CMs, so pick and choose your poison, see how it goes, right? Now then, I want to show a couple example like stat lines that have been adjusted. For example, if you have both Bofa and Swinging Maestro and a level 3 ult, well, you can add a few more stats in, right? You have room to put in a good chunk of extra speed, a little bit of extra stamina, and power, so take full advantage. However, let's say you happen to be running an end closer, so you happen to be running want to run Nimble Navigator and Straightaway Spur, and then a pair of blues plus whatever greens you can manage. This is a perfectly reasonable stat line. This will win races. This is a very good Uma at this stage, right? In particular, if you were able to stem out stamina and speed greens, like you could make this a lot more efficient and maybe even squeeze in another velocity still, which would be quite good on this particular build. Now, I want to make sure I do something I didn't do last time, and that's provide examples. So, my first example is my own Uma. This is my own Dire Scarlet. She has been winning in some of my test races. I say some because I've been losing to this Uma a lot. This Uma by Kara TM actually forms the basis for the stat line that I offered you earlier, right? She has 2 recoveries, she has 4 greens, a level 1 ult, and basically exactly the stat line that I recommended. This Uma does win. She might look a little bit low on the stat requirements, but remember, she actually has an extra 100 speed that is not listed on her raw stat sheet because of her greens, and an extra 120 stamina. She's actually a 977 stamina Uma. She's quite healthy as far as this sort of thing goes. Now, a little bit on the lower health end is this TM Upper O. If she does get hit with the stamina debuffer, I'm pretty sure she's in danger. But you gotta remember, as a late surgery, she gets to stam out a little bit on stamina. Why did I put her on the pace chaser examples? I might be kind of silly. That's a late surgery, by the way. Not a pace chaser stamina. Oh, although she could be a pace chaser. I have tested it, and she did okay. But I think she's doing better than late surgery. That's why. That's right. That's why she's here, right? What I want to make sure that everyone understands is that, like, some builds are flexible, right, and some Uma are flexible. But as a rule, being a pace chaser is a little bit rough, except that as a pace chaser, you have easy access to more recovery skills. A lot of pace chasers have extra recoveries that other Uma just don't get. And Opera O is a great exception, right? Where, like, if you shove enough greens in her, you can make her work. Speaking of which, this is like the green build I mentioned earlier, where I took rainy days despite it not being very efficient, because I wanted to make it extra super double guaranteed that she can proc the 45% velocity version of her ult, and she wins. She folds people. Now then, let's talk about some other late surges I've seen win. I have lost left, right, and center. This particular one by Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a menace, by the way. Look out for them. Uh, they have provided a very high stamina count with a very low skill count. They don't even have a second gold recovery. But this is a great example of how, like, if you have enough raw stamina, you're multiplying the effect of the skill recovery that you do get. Between Gojo Moon and Corner Recovery, they're actually getting enough stamina that they consistently finish. And having both a primary acceleration in Nimble Navigator and a backup acceleration in Slick Surge has served them extremely well. Even when I isolate them from their team and put them as a solo practice partner, they tend to perform very well in practice rooms, even without participating as part of a team that has like double debuffers on it. This is a very, very powerful Uma that you should absolutely respect. Also, you might be surprised to see this nice nature here because she has a debuff on here. Yes, debuffs are real this CM. You will find people who didn't build enough stamina or who did build enough stamina, but they're trying to scam out, right? They look a little bit like that upper O that I just built, where they have barely enough stamina, right? In those cases, a stamina debuff can go a really long way to delaying their final bit of acceleration, right? Which means you can beat people even if you don't deserve to. And frankly, this nice nature is not that great. She's definitely a little slow, right? She's a little slow. She's missing a lot of power, but she's right there in that money shot for the stat line that we recommended, right? So being right in that money shot, plus having some fairly solid recovery herself, she won a race. Which, hey, good for her. Which, by the way, again, I need to emphasize: Nimble Nav is the only acceleration on this Uma. She hit Nimble Nav, and no one else did, so she won. Bam, easy as is, right? Now the special week. I didn't expect the special week to win. She was not on my radar, but she should have been. I need to remind everyone again. No one really quite knows where the goalposts are on skills versus raw stats in open. This is a very low raw stat Uma. She's quite slow. She's under 700. But what I need to remind everyone is that, like, the gap between 600 speed and 700 speeds for your actual velocity is not really that big, right? So with velocity skills, hint, 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 late surge corners, behold, Emperor's Divine Might, home stretch haste, she can fight for the lead, and she did, and she won. She also got an incredibly lucky fighter proc, which procced very late into the, like, really at the start of the late race, which was incredibly lucky for her, right? So even though it was kind of luck that she won, she can still win. I think she's a great. This special week is a great example of, like, Uma that can win in open that you might not expect to have a chance, right? Now, end closers. I need to be as clear as I can. End closers are the demons you need to beat. Every end closer, if it has enough stamina and straightaway spurt somewhere on its kit, is a terrifying opponent to fight against. You will lose to those Uma. I lost this of my Ayurveda. This Naraya Taishin has absolutely folded me more than once. These are both terrifying Uma. In fact, they're so scary that I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to go ahead and make my own goal sheet based off of them, because I think they're quite good. This is a great example of, you know what, I could recycle, but hey, what if we don't make our Uma better instead? Now, you'll notice I don't have a front runner here with any front runner wins, because I haven't lost to a front runner yet this CM. In graded, they're still real, because in graded you can just take more stills, right? Frontrunners tend to win a lot in the in Track Blazer. It's very easy for them to win, right? It's even, especially with a reroll, right? They're quite consistent, and so that means that they get a lot of extra still points and a lot of extra stills because you're already running a lot of races, and because they're better at running races, they can easily run more, and that means that you can sometimes just get a really crazy high roll. There are some absolutely crazy high roll Kiyosan Blacks out there that are terrifying. But you'll remember what I said before. The only real XLLs for frontrunners are Kiasan Black, Inheritance, and Alien Steaming. There is no other good, consistent frontrunner like XL. Nimble Navigator probably won't work on your random frontrunner, right? There is no other good frontrunner XL. Because there's no good frontrunner XL, I don't think frontrunners are very real. Kind of. The exception is right here, Kiasan Black. I do think that if you are going to run a frontrunner, hopefully you have KSM Black. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect her to win. Now, I will show off some frontrunners I have seen that have performed well, but have not won. First off is this Mayano Top Gun. I think she's aiming at the high skill end of the skill to stats paradigm, right? She's relatively low on wit for a frontrunner. She actually lost the lead for most of the run to my frontrunning air groove, which is a benchmark rabbit air groove that has long B, right? So that's not a good look. That the my on top gun was losing to her. However, starting at about the halfway point of the race, she actually started pulling ahead, and she ended up pulling into a very convincing first place. Uh, and then got folded by both my gold chip and my late surge of TM Pro flying past the post and absolutely obliterating her. Uh, but while she did lose, I think it's reasonable to say she would have beaten a lot of other people because of how big her lead was. This is a very large number of convincing velocity skills, and she has Swinging Maestro, and she has 780 stamina. I think that she might have actually had a little bit too little stamina, and that might have been her the real nail in her coffin. It's possible that if she had more stamina, she could have started her spurt a little bit sooner. But the thing is, I think she could still win. She happened to lose to me, but I'm very curious personally that if I ran into her again without my end closer and late surger, how would she perform? Although I'm also curious how she would perform if they had another front runner. They tried to run her as solo front, and as a rule, I don't think you should ever do solo front. If you run a front runner, take another one, right? That's just a good rule of thumb. Here's a great example. So this person, Mem, did take another front runner, and they actually had a phenomenal time. They beat my air groove, and you'll notice they were distance ahead of the next closest Uma, right? This frontrunner KSM Black is not very real. She is missing a lot of speed. 550 is just too low. I'm sorry. There's no way that 550 speed is going to be at all okay, right? She also only has 330 dots, which is okay, and only 623 stamina, which is not okay. But despite having such low stats, she still came in third, and only by 7 lengths. That's kind of phenomenal. I think it talks a lot about how powerful KSM Black's ult is this CM. Basically, what this Uma did is she had a very fat ult, and she was gone for a very long time. It took a while for my gold chip and my upper O to catch up and pass her. It was not till the very, very end. And I think that's quite impressive. I suspect that if this build had just a little bit more raw speed and raw stamina built in, I think she would have won. And so, even though I haven't seen a frontrunner win, I do think there is potential for Kiasan Black in particular to pull some crazy wins off, where she is just unstoppable and undefeatable. She's gonna take off, and you're not gonna be able to catch her sometimes. So take care, everyone. Now, as always, I want to do a short segment on what's viable and possible this CM. I don't really believe in saying that some Uma are stronger than others because I think that like to some degree it's all luck. To some degree it's all like build like various builds match up better against other builds, right? Uh, there are some ones I want to mention though that are stronger than they were last CM. Aguri Cap has been a fraud for the past couple of CMs, but I think this is finally her time to shine. Even though Triple Seven's procs at a bad time, she still has a recovery ult, and she still has a stamina ult, and she still sorry, she still has a velocity ult, and she still has an acceleration ult. I think you will find that at least some of the time, there's going to be some crazy gambling Aguri Cap build that has like Dormond, Race Planner, Swinging Maestro, that just explodes past you in the mid race, gets a carryover excel, and just wins, right? It's gonna happen, right? I also want to mention how easy it is to build these Uma. As always, my general rule of thumb is I want to make things easy, so that means I'm looking for D or better for long, because it's a long turf race. By the way, last CM, I saw people bringing in Mile D, Dirt D, Opera O. Don't do that to my girl, come on. Anyways, my rage and sorrow aside, uh, what D means is that you only need 7 sparks to get her from uh, D to A. It's very possible, right? You only need one parent to do that, right? Because it's so easy to do, frankly I believe in y'all. I think it's possible, right? You can do it, and I highly encourage y'all to give it a shot. Okay, I think it could definitely work. Now, that being said, I want to make sure that you avoid burnout. Just because something can work doesn't mean you should push it. Long E is doable, by the way. It just takes a second mama. So I do think that like if you have a good long mom and are borrowing a full 9 spark pink mama, I think you could absolutely make some of these Uma work, like Fuji, Air Groove, and Silent Suzuka stand out in particular. I think those three you could make work with reasonable ease. Smart Falcon, though, also has to worry about her turf sparks, so, hey, good luck with that, because might be kind of tough. And remember that the whole point of playing open is that you also have other stuff you want to do, and you're trying to avoid burnout. I think that's one of the main reasons you play open, because you're trying to make your life easier. Don't make your life hard by trying to make a long G Uma work. Unless they're your Oshi, and in which case I understand. Respect. Mission passed. So let's talk about general strength, right? Again, I want to talk about general strength. Uh, Funnily enough, Miss John Umamusume, or Jane Umamusume, if you prefer, with Special Week, is actually quite strong to CM. She is Miss Run You Down. She has a perfectly viable velocity ult that will also sometimes give her some acceleration because it has a small acceleration component built into it. So you will lose to a random Special Week that just came in and decided to play ball. Of course, every end closer is terrifying. Even if they're not an end closer A, like my top down is end closer B, you could easily run Mayo top down as an end closer and absolutely fold people this CM. Yes, her ult isn't very powerful this CM, but who cares? She can get straightaway spurt, and she can be an end closer. That means that she can win. Every end closer is terrifying. In particular, Goldchip, Narita Taishin, and Tomomo Cross are three very scary end closers that you must be aware of because they have spurt built in. Goldchip has and Goldchip and Narita Taishin both have extra recovery built in, and Taishin in particular has encroaching shadow. There are some times where there's nothing you can do. The enemy opponent has the full double recovery, encroaching shadow, nimble nav, Narita Taishin, and they win and you lose, and that's all there is to the story. Kiss on Black is the same way, right? Like a very well built Kiss on Black. I haven't seen one yet, but I know they have to be out there. I know that I'm probably gonna drop at least one race to a particularly powerful Kiss on Black that's well built. It is possible to build her to be powerful versus CM. Now, other notable worthies are the recovery Uma. Yes, they can pass on their recovery. You'll notice Isekai Wonder isn't here. That's because Isekai Wonder's ult on herself is not that great. It's better for people that can like inherit it and then take advantage of other skills later, right? You want stronger personal ults. Super Creek has a very reliable pure heart proc. Second through fourth is very easy to do as a pace chaser. Mambo and Agnes Tachyon also have very reliable recovery ults, which because they have good recovery ults, you can stam out on other stuff. You can either build extra stamina, or you can try and do something kind of silly where you don't take a second gold recovery, and you will beat people just because you have more stamina than they do, and they just weren't prepared. And even with their crazy debuffer that they put together, you still beat them, right? Now, Daiwa and Dota are special. They are two halves of what's called the two-stage rocket strategy. If you are a fan of two-stage rocket, congratulations, it works again. I promise you it works. My Daiwa has definitely gotten wins. If you don't know what that is, basically you make a rabbit of some kind, probably Air Groove, but it could be someone else, right? Some front runner that you expect to lose. And then you throw in a pair of good pace chasers that have acceleration ults built into their kit. So that is primarily Daiwa Scarlet and Meisho Doto. Meisho Doto has a larger proc window than Daiwa Scarlet does, but Daiwa Scarlet can proc at a better time, more consistently. So running both is ideal if you do that. And they are strong if you do that. Now, I don't really have any weak Uma this CM because, frankly, if they're not on that pile, I think they can win. They're just a little bit tougher, but they are perfectly capable of winning, right? I definitely showed some earlier today that, like the Admire Vega that folded me, right? And the Major McQueen for the matter that folded me. Like, you can absolutely win with other Uma. There are other good Uma this CM. I'm not calling them bad. But you've probably heard me say Rabbit Air Groove over and over and over again. And someone asked what that was, and so I'm going to explain that one because that one's a little out of pocket. Air Groove has long E and front D. What does that mean? That means you can put her at long B and have a reasonably good odds of her not getting long A. You can also very easily get her to a good front runner score. Why is that important? Well, frontrunners are routinely bad on long CMs. Quite awful, in fact. They're so bad that routinely you can make them gas out by just putting Air Groove in front and having them race alongside her. The extra speed that they burn trying to get ahead in the mid race tends to mean they gas out sooner. Because they gas out, you now have an easier time passing them, which means you get to proc a bunch of passing ults like Nimble or passing accelerations like Nimble Navigator, right? So she makes a lot of your accelerations a lot stronger if there happens to be another frontrunner in the CM. She also enforces the pace. Prevents lucky pace, which means that she can prevent some very powerful Uma like Mambo from accidentally getting into first place. Which means that if you happen to be running Mambo and you don't want to be in first place, Super Creed doesn't either for that matter, right? Or if you want to delay the activation of a Direwest Scarlet ult so that it happens at the correct timing, Air Groove is this really incredible front tech piece that you can put in and intentionally make her lose. Because she can also be a very dedicated end closer debuffer. That's what this is about, by the way. Regular Air Groove is the only Uma that has dedicated end closer hate built into her kit. And you maybe have heard me mention end closers a few times. They get Straightaway Spurt, which is the best acceleration in the lobby of the CM. Also a lot of the best Uma are end closer Uma, right? Like Tamamo Cross, Narita Taishin, Gold Chip. So because end closers are so strong, Air Groove is actually quite a strong debuffer. So by making her a rabbit that is intentionally designed to lose, she fulfills a lot of roles if you make her be your debuffer this CM. Because she can fill so many roles, it's a very, very flexible option. I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody. It is a little bit tougher to build than everything else I've mentioned so far, but it is quite powerful. I've definitely, she is a huge contributor to my large win rate in long CMs. Now, how do you build it? Quite easily. Just grab whatever hesitance you can, and then grab whatever end closer hate that you can. End closer hate is basically built into her kit. You don't need to hunt it down. But as always, if you need to find the other hesitance, here's what I recommend. Hesitant late is on Mateki. Marvelous Sunday can do hesitant front and hesitant pace, and then hesitant end closers is really only on air groove. Other Umo can get it, but you take air groove, right? Like yes, you could do this with other Uma, but because Air Groove just already has the stuff built in, like, why not just run Air Groove? Now, in conclusion, what do I have to say about this? Open is very fun. Trackblazer is out. Take advantage of it to improve your team trials. Open gives you time to fix your team trials. Please take your greens. Do not stamp on stamina or your recoveries. Stats are precious. Calculate routinely. May your gold chip win, and may your Air Groove tackle Dolce and break other people's kneecaps. Good luck, everybody.